Hi everybody, I'm here like usual. Man, let me tell you ever get mixed messages? That's been happening to me recently. Having a personal struggle with that. Simultaneously, gotta remember the world doesn't revolve around one person, but at the same time, you lead your own life. How do I remember that I play the most important role in my own life, but in the grand scheme, said role isn't all too big when you consider the number of people surrounding me? How do I recognize that no matter how big I get in terms of success or infamy or anything, I'm ultimately a single blade in a vast field? Anyway, let's talk about Spider-Man. This is a character, an idea that's been recreated and fine-tuned across every form of media imaginable, along with every generation since. Superheroes are a thing that have become a worldwide phenomenon, but for a lot of people, myself included, Spider-Man lingers and shines above the rest. The thing is that there's the idea that anyone can be under the mask. I don't really agree with that. I think it's an earned name. Anyone could have been bitten by that radioactive spider and become Spider-Man, but only a few can actually earn the role of Spider-Man. It's meant to be a symbol that represents something greater. You have these lead characters that have the morals and integrity to be good, which comics especially play with, doing things like having lookalikes or inherently bad people wear the suit, but then the real identity of respective spider people really highlight what makes them special. Peter Parker as a character throughout so many renditions will have moments where they don't do what would benefit themselves the most. They do what is right or get guided to do what's right. Spider-Man as a concept works so well because they're shown getting back up after so many falls. Even in these exaggerated scenarios with all these superhero enemies and allies, Spider-Man is the perfect bridge between these absurdities while remaining true to himself and his personal life. When a loved one dies in these stories, when everything seems hopeless or impossible, when the media of his world sees him as a menace and wants him gone, he gets back up. That is what makes a Spider-Man, not the name. Because of that, I would say in most renditions, namely Peter Parker and Miles Morales, have been able to elevate above this name. There's obviously more renditions of Spider-People. Ben Reilly, 2099, and Spider-Gwen come to mind, but those are different characters that don't do the same things, which is totally alright. I hover around this example because it's one of the ones that sparked this thought. It feels a lot like people talk about their favorite character, but rarely are able to express what makes an effective lead in a long-lasting franchise. A good and inspiring protagonist, because the fact of the matter is, a lead is the backbone to whatever you are making, whatever is being made. So I really just wanted to talk about a few main characters I think about too often. I can really only see a few types of protagonists leading in works, each serve different purposes, each have their own gimmicks behind them. Most obvious example, the silent protagonist. Pretty easy to explain. These are the guys that you customize from the get-go, through naming them, designing them to be the self-insert of your character. They're meant to be the viewer or player themselves being the one in control. One I think about often, the Animal Crossing villagers. They show up to a generic island or town, then you do all the work from there. They have become less and less common in mainstream, becoming more of a thing in indie games or short films, where maybe speaking isn't all too important. We're still getting to a point where silent protags are getting characterized more often. Link and Cloud Strife have taken completely different paths as main characters, despite both being mute in their initial entries. Cloud has been given a more established character that justifies his lack of speaking in the first game, that being that he's edgy and cool and he doesn't need to speak. His actions express all that he needs to, and then he talks in most games anyway, so this is stupid. It doesn't go anywhere. I just associate Nintendo and Square Enix with silent protags. Link, on the other hand, has solidified as the funny green yelly elf man and not much else. In the Breath of the Wild saga, it marked the first real time in a recent title where the player wasn't able to name him, which was literally only done so he wouldn't be a problem with the voice acting. He's about the same still. Really, you see silent guys characterized through their actions and responses. The Mario Bros hardly speak, but after a few decades, we get their general vibe. A silent protagonist doesn't necessarily need to speak to express emotion. Facial and body movements can tell you a lot about a person. This is a bit of an off tangent, but this is something I wanted to share about the choopo character, the one that's used in animated bits on this channel and the first one. Choopo used to stand up perfectly straight, but after some time, I remade his body to slouch a tad because that added to the character. And there's a lot of cases like that. Making small adjustments can speak mountains about the expectations of a character design, even when it's as simple as this one. So long as your most important character works, the rest will follow suit. I think this is a lot of what makes a protagonist falter compared to a supporting cast. Like, there's nothing wrong with making a more compelling supporting cast, but if your lead doesn't fit, sticks out too much, or they don't have too much to look out compared to the rest, there is weakness. I get the point of Pokemon trainers, especially in new games. They're your Minecraft skins, your Miis. These are avatars meant to represent something else, but like, the rest of the cast is so much cooler in almost every generation. The only real time where Pokemon trainers get a majority of the love anyway is the mobile game Pokemon Masters. This is an all-stars type of game in a way. So when they try adding any player trainer besides the first couple gens like Red or Blue or Gary, whatever you want to call Gary, which have gotten personalities over time, they feel off. The rest feel wrong. Their existences with given personalities feel invasive. But hey, this is not the story-based side. Most main characters are the opposite. They have as much going on as the main cast, but they usually get more screen time than the rest of them. They are your heroes. This is your hero's journey. Some are more basic, some aren't. If there was a competition for the most average run-of-the-mill generic lead character in my brain, it would probably be Luke Skywalker in the original trilogy of Star Wars. Now later on, sure, he had become embittered by the events that go on, transitioning away from the original role he had. But at first, he was so average that to this day, he's used in college classes to teach students how to write a simple and effective lead character. Luke is not a character who carves the story around them. He's not controlling the plot. Instead, he feels more like a cog in a greater system, a puzzle piece in a greater jigsaw. I like it enough, and really all they do is set him up to be destined for greatness, like so many characters do. That's like the thing he does and makes him important. And then every person watching Star Wars finds other characters they prefer compared to him. Mine is Yoda. He does his job. He grows across the trilogy into a more capable individual. Then he kisses his sister. Next one. Marty McFly is funny because he simultaneously has the same and so much more going on than Luke. Marty at the start's already friends with Doc. His entire family's full of losers, something he's probably gonna join him in, and to an extent he inevitably does in one of the bad futures of the second movie. Going back to the thing about not speaking, I want to look at a movie that I think would have done better without a talking lead character. 9. Mild spoilers here. This is a PG-13 animated film about war, along with a single robot being responsible for the eradication of all life along with itself. The movie opens up with a doctor who invented the robot splitting his souls into 9 little Stitch punk guys. The main character, and the final one, finds himself isolated, knowing nothing. For these first few minutes, he is literally one for one with the viewer. All we see is this creature's POV. And then in a few minutes, we learn that there's a lot of death. Exactly one scary robot to be worried for, and then another pal, this being 2. Almost immediately, 2 realizes 9 can't talk and gives him a voice box. This moment unironically destroys so much of the movie's potential, and now 9's voiced by Elijah Wood. A big issue with this movie is that most of the characters are kind of basic. The premise and execution of the world are really cool, but the characters fall flat to an extent, and the short runtime always irked me a bit, because it feels like the cast keeps going back and forth to the same 3 areas, the only side characters really getting extensive fulfilled roles being 1, 2, and 5, which is fine. It's just that, yeah, these characters do feel like fragments of one guy who gave his soul between over a half a dozen critters. 6 exists for being a plot point. 8 is dumb muscle, so he's not too bad. Maybe could have been shown to be more loyal to them all. I wish 7 had more going on, but 3 and 4 are literally like the mute, mischievous twins I was talking about. Unfortunately, 9 loses that spark of a new point of view in order to fulfill a new purpose of being a kind of generic hero that brings life back to the world. I just think for the very least, a little more time until he changes character through the voice box would have worked out, though the intention for this decision still makes sense. And while I'm on this negative path, let me talk about some leads I don't really find myself enjoying. These are more of like my hot takes, where they're just straight up weaker or less enjoyed compared to everybody else. Here's a good example that might get me crucified: Frodo Baggins. I understand his role. I'm sorry to Elijah Wood specifically, even though I enjoy him. I love Lord of the Rings for how genuine everyone feels, but that's the problem here. Elijah Wood is not a good main character unless it's over the garden wall. He actually does a very good job there. Frodo in specific is dedicated to destroying one ring. So everybody in the first movie is doing his own thing, and then in the end of it, Frodo and Samwise split up from everybody else. So just a bit, it makes Frodo feel like a little video gamey, which is totally fine. It's still captivating. It's just my thoughts on the character, and it's intentional because then it shows how cracked the working class Samwise is. Just a weaker aspect of a fantastic trilogy. Again, Frodo is still a compelling character. I just think in comparison, it could have been a stronger person, and Samwise is better. I kind of don't really care for Pikachu or Kirby or Yoshi. They are cute characters, yes. They are marketable creatures, yes. I have those little yarn Yoshis and like a little sleeping Kirby. Even the rotten-hearted monster I am likes their designs to an extent. But justifiably, I don't like proportionate Yoshi. The yarn and sprite ones are good. The rest look like like tumors. They're gross. I don't want to be around that. But that's also not the point of these guys. I get that. It's just not my thing. With all the three of these series, there's other characters that are more likable, like King Dedede or 1,000 other Pokemon. A lot of the greater Mario universe and like half of the Pokemon roughly, these are mascot characters with a lot of funny quirks that I personally struggle to latch onto in any way, but maybe their simplicities are what make them so popular. They have easy to understand goals while also being recognizable. These guys go back to the point where the supporting cast is just as, if not stronger than the rest, and being iconic as your biggest character isn't a bad thing at all. I think about Goku, Sonic, Luffy, even Popeye for about the same reasons. The difference here is that you get introduced based on the world or like some weird side aspect. Then you learn about who they are outside of a surface level. Goku wants to fight and get stronger. It's enough to where it's endearing to watch because he is so dedicated to it, besides being a dumbass and dead fairly often. Sonic goes fast, but he's also just like a free and confident spirit that does what they want. Luffy is stupid, don't get me wrong, but his senses of doing what's right is always fun to watch. He's made to be selfishly selfless a lot of the time. Literally all his motivation is reliant on making it to the top with the people he cares about through so many good moments. And Popeye wants to knock Bluto's shit in, and we don't like Bluto. But it goes further from there. What about the bad fellas, the leads who are the bad people or get corrupted to even improve and redeem? The funniest comparison has to be Breaking Bad's Walter White and Woody in the first Toy Story. Walter's downfall as a person is probably one of the strongest leads in television history. It's gonna stay that way for a long time. My takeaway with him was always Walter being this controlling and trying man with everything he could muster to keep it together an unbelievably flimsy lie through an uncountable amount of atrocities and crimes he committed. Now, Woody from Toy Story is a toy who hates being replaced as the favorite. He's a leader. He's a guy who plans ahead and makes sure everybody in his group of toys keeps their places and lasts through the turmoil of being a toy. And then he becomes a real uncool fella when Buzz Lightyear shows up. Woody and Walter White are in the same place of my mind for being a couple examples of random leads who are effective for different reasons. Neither of them are characters you look at or take much inspiration from, but you know what? Pretty cool fellas. Then we got Greg Heffley. Ooh, okay. So Greg Heffley might be one of the most mischaracterized main characters of all time. This is not a bit. That's a lot in part because of the stupid children reading these books. That's in part of just because of how I remembered it. Wasn't smart enough to register the intent of Greg's POV to show how terrible of a person he is through his writing. It's a really simple and cool way of expressing a character without directly showing it. It's just that I was dumb. I didn't have media literacy. I still am dumb. Overall, a good example about how POV can impact character perception despite how they might actually be. It's just that, again, the audience might be too young to fully articulate that this is a bad guy, we should not be supporting him. Alrighty, so I'm feeling like I've said enough names of characters I like. I want to get to the end of this just by noting some main guys who don't really fit anywhere else. They're pretty well-rounded, just personal favorites of mine. So I wanted to chuck in a Disney movie type in this talk and ultimately went with Mulan. It would have been Wreck-It Ralph, but he's really badly written in the second movie and actually ruins the potential of this one character forever. Wreck-It Ralph 2 is a horrible movie and everything. It's a bad movie. I hate it. Mulan is a straight up good person with a noble goal. Her family has to provide a soldier to the army. Her dad's too old to go, but he's the only option. Mulan takes it up and stands out as a capable hero despite how many obstacles came her way. And she also ended like thousands of lives in a single shot. She has one of the highest kill counts in Disney history, by the way. Really just a silly fun fact. I forgot what the bald fat guy's name is, but he's my favorite. Katniss Everdeen, once again, is one of those leads who I think fades in the background compared to some of the other characters of the roster. Hunger Games specifically just has a lot of really solid immoral characters throughout. Even people on the good side have their problematic tendencies, such as Hamish's alcohol abuse and Gale. Nah, just Gale. Hunger Games is such a unique spot though. Like the main point is that Katniss is the face of the resistance and therefore must survive. So it makes it way more dangerous for all the side characters that can be taken out for character development. Hunger Games just has a good lineup. That's not even Katniss's fault in comparison because she does what she has to. But like Mags and Finnick alone are so interesting despite their limited time on screen or like in the lines. What do you say for books? Nathan Drake. I'm not the biggest fan of Uncharted gameplay, but I at the very least appreciate the scope of each game and how a lot of moments can feel fun and cinematic at the same time. Nathan himself being a good person to follow. I mostly bring him up in part because of the movie adaptation, which I haven't seen, but it feels wrong to look at. I understand Tom Holland being picked to play him for the fame and name recognition, but I'm being serious. I thought that Mark Wahlberg, a guy who looks closer to Nathan Drake and casted in the same movie, was Nathan Drake. So I'm not gonna lie, I still am dumbfounded by these choices. But hey, you know what? The game version is pretty solid. Good, lovable little PlayStation mascot right next to Kratos, who I'm gonna try talking about, even though I have no experience with God of War, mostly my familiarity coming with memes and occasional videos I see on YouTube. For me, the entire concept of Kratos is really interesting, if only for how the 4th and 5th game moved his story. Again, reliant on YouTube videos for this one, so it might be wrong. I do really enjoy the premise of following this lost man who's transformed so much. In the DLC for Ragnarok, there's a part where new old Kratos talks to his old new Kratos self. Not even a fight. It's just an extremely powerful scene and good example of voice acting, of an old man coming to terms with his consequences, and an extremely well executed scene. It makes me wonder how the Amazon show is going to be able to replicate anything like it. I'm hopeful for it though. I just don't know what to expect. But above the rest, there's this rare type of lead character that seems so uncommon in each work, being different based on who you ask. Almost like this beacon of a main character who inspires and brings hope to not only their world, but their audience. Spider-Man adaptations have gotten close to that feeling for me, but there's one character who I think about too often, and that's gotta be Poe. Poe is an amalgamation of tragedy, underestimation, disappointing expectations. He still keeps going. First movie, he's given the dream of being a kung fu master, and he gets ridiculed and belittled for even being considered an accidental selection of the Dragon Warrior, but like, he still comes back to train every day, and eventually he finds his footing, he beats the odds, and is finally truly respected in the end. And then in the second movie, he finds out about his young life and what was taken from him. But even then, he still keeps going. He's this inspiring example of the indomitable effort and having a passion for something, no matter how impossible it may seem. The first 2 movies do a great job at this, allowing us to quite literally watch Poe recognize his self-worth and capabilities. The third movie is a little off, but he does the same that we're used to. But that 4th movie, the one where he's like moving away from this act, I just don't, this isn't really the same character. He's more like an odd Flanderization of what people who aren't losers and analyze the characteristics of cartoon animals imagine Poe. Regardless, to me, he's remained a compelling guy who I always appreciate. And with that being said, I think I'm all done for today. I hope you check out more videos, subscribe, all that. But remember guys, despite everything negative there is to say about Kung Fu Panda 4, the 3rd one will always be worse. Panda Village sucks. Okay, bye!